Hi, I'm Jim Nettles, and this is my story. I think if you're happy, you don't pay attention to what's going on around you. Then you accidentally find out that your wife is cheating on you, and your world turns to shit. I thought my 18-year-old daughter and her friends were sneaking into the basement to drink my homemade beer. Instead, the camera I installed in the basement captured my wife's boyfriend having sex with her and drinking my beer. JT and I are members of a beer club in Atlanta, and he discovered that his wife of 25 years had been cheating on him for over 24 years. He told us his story at one of our beer club meetings. One thing he said that I ignored was to take off my rose-colored glasses and examine my marriage. Karen and I have 3 children and have been married for almost 28 years. Life was wonderful. Karen is the only child of Ben and Alice Thompson. She comes from the rich and famous. Karen may be 49 years old, but she can pass for 35 years old. I'm not sure if I had a middle-class upbringing or not, but I grew up in a loving family. I grew up in a small town outside of Atlanta, and I'm the younger of 2 boys. I grew up next door to my grandparents, and my father worked in my grandfather's hardware store. My brother Ken and I worked at the store after school and on weekends. Ken attended Georgia Tech and works as an electrical engineer for a paper company in South Carolina. Following the example of my older brother, I entered the Georgia Institute of Technology to major in computer science. Every small town has a rich kid, and my friend Joey was such a rich kid. Joey and I have been best friends since we were 3. While I was attending Georgia Tech, Joey was attending Emory. I made appointments with Joey when he visited me, and he reciprocated when I visited him. Karen was on one of my blind dates at Emory. This was the only blind date Joey took me on and whom I called to set up a second date. As high school students, we spent as much time with each other as our schedules allowed. I knew one thing. I wanted to spend the rest of my life with this woman. However, there was one problem that I needed to solve before asking her to marry me. My grandparents and parents taught me to work hard and provide for my family. Karen came from a family with money and had never worked in her life. My pride did not allow me to live at the expense of her parents. If she had agreed to marry me, we would have lived on our own, without the help of her parents. Thank God she agreed. When I was old enough to work, my father insisted that I save 10% of everything I earned for my future. I used some of my savings to buy Karen an engagement ring. The day after I asked Karen to marry me, we went and told her parents. Karen and her mother were delighted and began planning the wedding. Karen's father and I left them alone. We went into his office and he asked me about my plans after graduating from university. I told him that I accepted a job with a large corporation here in Atlanta. He was glad that we would be around and that he knew the leaders of this corporation. After about 2 hours, we said goodbye and left. Karen and her mother had 14 months to plan their wedding, and I had a year to focus on my career. 3 months after we told Karen's parents about our plans, Ben invited me into his office. He told me that he liked me and knew that Karen loved me, but as a father, he had to protect his daughter and family. I sat there wondering what the hell he was talking about. He handed me a document and said it was a marriage contract that he wanted me to sign. I heard my father's voice. Never sign anything without reading it, asking questions, asking for advice and thinking it through before you sign. He sat and waited for me to finish reading the contract. The agreement stated that if our marriage ended within the first 5 years, I would receive $100,000 and would have no right to any other property from Karen or her family. Every 10 years, the money limits increased and reached a limit of $5 million on our 25th wedding anniversary. I sat and looked at him with my mouth open, trying to decide what to answer. After a few minutes, I told him, "Sir, I love your daughter, and I plan to spend the rest of my life loving her. However, the business side of me understands what you're getting at. I'll take this with me and think about it." He said, "Okay. I will be waiting for your answer." My father is always the first person I turn to for advice, so I went to him. Dad took his time reading it twice before saying, "Jim, we both know why Ben wants this agreement, and the way it's written only protects his family. My question is, what do you want from this marriage, and what do you want to protect from them? He and I discussed my feelings for Karen, goals, dreams, and long-term future. Dad said, "I have always assumed that if you ask me to give up something, then you should give up something too." Ben's lawyer takes care of the Thompsons, which is what he gets paid for. He sees you as a country boy with nothing to lose and everything to gain. You and I both understand why he needs this agreement. Ben believes you love Karen now, but he's worried something will happen later. If you or I were in his place, we would have done the exact same thing. He paused, then said, "Jim, the marriage is falling apart for several reasons. This prenuptial agreement states any reason. Being together in college is one thing, but being a married working couple is another. Will you and Karen be able to overcome the difficulties? You may find that you can't live together because of work, or friends, or money, or lack thereof, parents, or whatever. Do you need Ben's money because your marriage isn't working out? What is it that would end a marriage that would make you want his money? God, I'm so glad I went and talked to Dad. I called my brother Ken and got his opinion, and it basically sounded like I was talking to my dad again. After talking with several other people I trusted, I knew what changes I would make to the prenuptial agreement and how to discuss them with Ben. On our next visit to Karen's parents, I asked Ben for a few minutes of his time. He looked at me and said, "Let's go into my office and give these ladies time to discuss the wedding." When we entered the office, I took out the marriage contract that Ben had given me. "Sir, I've thought a lot about this and would like to make a few changes." He prepared to say something, paused, then nodded his head, inviting me to continue. "I understand and can appreciate your position. I will marry your daughter because I love her. So I suggest the following. 1. For the first 10 years of marriage, you put $100,000 into an investment account. Together, we will determine where to invest these funds. We will meet quarterly to discuss this. I believe this will give us an opportunity to get closer to each other. 2. If the marriage fails, then the money will remain with you. Karen and I will split our marital property 50-50. This does not include assets we acquired from you or my parents. 3. If the marriage ends in divorce because I committed adultery, then you will keep the money and Karen will receive 100% of the assets acquired during our marriage, excluding assets acquired from you or my parents. 4. If this marriage ends in divorce because Karen committed adultery, then I receive the money and 100% of the property we acquired during the marriage. Again, this does not include assets acquired from you or my parents. 5. Karen and I will take full control of the investment account on our 43rd wedding anniversary. I paused, giving him time to think. A smile crossed his face. He leaned back in his chair and said, "Son, your proposal is very interesting. It shows that you love my daughter. Your offer makes it clear that you are not interested in Karen for her money. Your proposal to co-manage an investment fund is truly creative. I agree that this will give us the opportunity to do things together, plus I will have control for 43 years. What I don't understand is that you don't want to share anything in case of cheating. I have 2 questions. Why 43 years? And why don't you want to divide the property in case of infidelity?" The answer to 43 years is simple. Karen and I will be 65 years old, and the money will go to retirement. He laughed and nodded his head for me to continue. If the marriage fails because we try but can't resolve our differences, then it's all equal. We gave everything we had to make it work. Why punish another person? If one of us commits adultery, we are doing it on purpose, and the marriage cannot survive betrayal and mistrust. Marriage is the joining of 2 into 1. Our mission is to be faithful to each other until the end of our days. If Karen is unhappy with me, she can ask for a divorce, and then she can date whoever she wants. I will be faithful to Karen, and the only way for me to get revenge is if she commits adultery while married to me. Does this answer your questions? Yes, son, you answered my questions. I will prepare a new contract for your review. Let's go join the ladies. A few weeks later, we brought Karen in and explained the prenuptial agreement to her. Karen was surprised to learn that this had already happened and that she had never considered this possibility. After reading it, Karen looked up and asked, Jim, do you mind? Yes, Karen. She slowly reread the contract. Jim, why 43 years? And what does this say about adultery? Laughing, I answered, your father asked me the same thing. In 43 years, we will be 65 years old. Think of it as our pension fund. Karen sat and smiled. If we try to make our marriage strong but we fail, then we get divorced and move on with our lives, knowing that we tried. Adultery is done intentionally, behind someone's back, by lying about where you have been and who you have been with. I can't think of anything more destructive or dishonest to a marriage. If I'm not good enough for you, or you feel the need for someone else, then ask me for a divorce. I will not be disrespectful, and I will not be a cuckold. I love you. I will be faithful to you, and I will demand the same from you. We had a wonderful wedding and a fantastic honeymoon. We have been married for almost 28 years and have 3 children. Dan is our oldest, 26 years old, and he was named after my father. He works at one of Ben's companies where Ben is grooming him to take over the family business. He has been accepted into the MBA program, which begins this fall. Benny is 25 years old and loves the outdoors, and joined my father after graduating from college. As you can see, Benny is named after Karen's father. My father is very happy to have someone in the family take over the management of the farm and hardware store. My brother and I left the farm as soon as we could. Amy, our surprise baby, turned 18 3 months ago and has everyone wrapped around her little finger. She is the best athlete among our children and will receive a full scholarship to play soccer at the University of Southern California next year. After the boys left for college, I converted the basement game room into a brew pub. Karen and I love to entertain, and the pub has become very popular with our family and friends. For months, I suspected that someone was stealing my beer. No, I don't do inventory. It's just a feeling. While collecting a few bottles of beer for a beer club meeting, I couldn't find a single bottle of IPA. Fred Jones was at a meeting that evening, and I told him I thought my 18-year-old daughter was stealing my beer from the pub. Do you let your daughter drink beer? No. I'll let her try it if she wants. Why do you think it's her? Beer disappears when I leave town. It can't be Karen. I've never seen her drink a whole glass of my beer. She prefers wine. The boys like my beer. When they come to visit, I send them home with a whole box. That leaves Amy and her friends. Well, I can install a motion control camera in the pub, and you can capture it on film. Great idea. Can you set up the camera tomorrow morning while Amy is at school? Is 11 a.m., okay? Thank you. See you tomorrow at 11 a.m. Frank arrived right on time and installed everything within 15 minutes. He spent another 20 minutes teaching me how to operate it. Are you going to tell Karen about the camera? No, she will most likely spill the beans and tell Amy about it. So, when's your next trip? I'm going to Cleveland next week. I leave on Wednesday and return on Thursday. Have a nice trip and let me know if she gets caught on tape. We left the system on and went to lunch. For the next 2 weeks, every time I went into my pub, I drank a beer and checked the tape. The only people caught on tape were the cleaners who came on Tuesday and Friday mornings and me. I didn't get home from Cleveland until 1 a.m. on Friday due to a 2-hour flight delay. I spent Friday afternoon in the office. On Friday night, Karen and I had dinner with her parents and then attended a play. On Saturday, we had a barbecue at our house. On Sunday after church, we visited my parents. When we returned home, I fell asleep in my easy chair. On Monday evening, while Karen was in a meeting and Amy was at soccer practice, I checked the tape. 5 minutes after watching the tape, my world collapsed. I expected to see Amy and her friends. Instead, I saw Karen walk into my pub holding hands with Jerome. Jerome, his wife Diana, and daughter moved to the area about 8 months ago. Jerome's daughter, Nicole, and Amy quickly became close friends. I was petrified to see how my wife, leaning over the arm of my favorite chair, was fucked by Jerome. How long I sat there staring at the screen, I don't know. It wasn't until I realized I was watching footage of a Saturday barbecue that I snapped out of my daze. Damn, how I regret not installing an audio recorder along with the camera. My shock turned to anger, and then to rage. My father always emphasized that you need to solve problems with a clear head and not let your anger control you. Do your research, gather the facts, understand the problem, and then decide how to deal with it. People make stupid decisions when they're angry. I needed hard facts. As the tape rewound, I took a few deep breaths, trying to calm myself, and watched the tape again. Obviously, this was not their first time. They had sex in several positions before it was all over. After that, she got up and brought him a beer. They sat and talked while the son of a bitch drank my beer. Before he could finish it, they had a second round. While Jerome was getting dressed, Karen brought him another beer and got dressed while he drank. This son of a bitch fucked my wife, drank my beer, and even took my bottles. I stopped recording and called Frank. He answered on the third ring. "Frank, this is Jim Nettles. Do you have a few minutes?" "Yes. Did you catch your daughter stealing beer?" "No. I caught my wife having sex with a neighbor, and I need your professional services." "I'm sorry to hear it. What do you want?" "All. Can we meet sometime tomorrow?" "Wait. I'll grab my planner. How about 4 o'clock tomorrow?" "Great, see you then. What do I need to bring?" "The tape, his name, address, phone number, work address, Karen's schedule, and when you'll be leaving town again. See you at 4. Thank God Karen wasn't home yet, which gave me time to get my emotions under control. About an hour later, Amy came downstairs and told me she was home. We went upstairs where she told me about her next game. I assured her that I would be there. I'm not one to hide from problems, so I decided to stay up and wait for my slut wife to come home. I'm still wondering if she was at the meeting that night or if she got screwed again. Well, I thought, Frank will find out everything. At 3:55, I walked into Frank's office, ready to fight. He told me he was sorry to hear about Karen cheating on me. I said, "I talked to JT, and he told me how you and Mike Ford handled his case. You are an expert. What do you recommend?" "I know about the prenuptial agreement, and you have all the necessary evidence of adultery. What do you want?" "I know, but I want to know everything about Jerome, his past, his wife, and his family. I want to know when he shits and where. I want him monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I want to know what he does, who he dates, how he makes money, and what he values most in life. This son of a bitch will pay for ruining my life. Not only do I want him to be watched, I want Karen to be watched 24/7 too. It will take time and manpower to collect all the information you want. I'll ask my staff to do this in the morning. I recommend installing cameras and recording devices in all rooms of your house, as well as in Karen's car." "Good idea. It's a shame we don't have audio from last week." "So when is your next trip?" "In 3 weeks. This time I will be gone for 4 days." "Great. By then we should have enough information for you. Did you bring the cassette?" "Yes. I brought what you asked for. When can we get to your home to install the new system?" "Karen plays bridge on Thursday mornings. How much time do you need?" "We need at least 2 hours." "Fine. I'm waiting for you at my house on Thursday at 9:30. When I left Frank's office, I felt better knowing that something was being done. Now all I could do was wait. 3 weeks later, I kissed my wife goodbye and left for Austin, Texas. The past 3 weeks have felt like 3 years. Mike Ford prepared all the legal documents and they were in my briefcase. I was the one who had to serve Karen with the divorce papers. I went to JT instead of going to Austin, knowing that tomorrow my marriage would end. As expected, Frank came with the news I was waiting for. This son of a bitch came 45 minutes after I left, and they had sex in our bed twice. Karen asked the asshole if he could spend tomorrow evening with her since Amy was spending the night at a friend's house tomorrow. After many hours of thought, I finally decided how to handle Karen's revelation. What I really wanted to do was throw them both out of my house naked and onto the street. The next day I called Karen's father and asked him to meet me at his office. I told him that I had a problem, that I needed his advice, and that I would like to discuss it privately. He agreed to meet me at 6:30 that evening. Ben met me at the door with a questioning look. I never asked to meet him in his office, so he knew something was up. Sir, I have always thought of you as a second father, and I am glad that I have known you for the last 29 years. Because I respect you and consider you my father, I have decided to treat you with the same respect that I would treat my own father in this situation. Jim, what are you talking about? Well, sir, I'm filing divorce papers with Karen tonight on the grounds of adultery. What in the name of all that is holy is going on? I have tapes of Karen and her lover having sex in our bed. Moreover, your daughter and her boyfriend are still having sex in our marital bed. This cannot be. What are you going to do? Well, sir, I've looked at it from several angles. What I want to do is go there, cut off his reproductive organs, shove them down his throat, and throw him out of my house. This can't be serious. Yes, I would love to do it. If I didn't respect you, that's exactly what I would do. However, I have another option that I would like to discuss with you. Over the next 45 minutes, we discussed my plan, and he agreed that this was the best way to handle the situation. At 9:15, Ben and I met Atlanta Police Detective Frank Jones, Brad Williams, Mike Ford, and Steve Collins at my home. I introduced everyone, and Frank informed us that they were in the master bedroom. We were standing on the porch talking when Frank heard through his earpiece that they were having sex. I unlocked the front door and led everyone into the living room. Looking at Ben, I said, "I'm sure you don't want to see your daughter have sex. Why don't you wait downstairs?" I promised him again that I would not physically harm Karen. Brad followed us up the stairs, carrying a video camera. We wanted to record them before they came in so they knew they were being recorded. Our plan was to stand outside the door and wait until Jerome was ready to come to the finish line and then enter. As we walked down the hallway towards the bedroom, the sounds of their lovemaking could be heard. These were the sounds of lovemaking, not just rough sex. As we stood in the hallway waiting, we heard Karen say, "Oh yeah, baby, that feels so good. God, how I missed you. Yes. Oh God, yes. Oh, my God, that's all. Don't move. I love you." Jerome increased the pace as she continued to moan. We prepared to enter, and then we heard the slut's plea. "Take me to the place where I'm sitting. Please take me. I love it when you take me like that." Karen purred. "God, I wish I could marry you. I've missed you." When we heard Jerome say, "Get ready, here it comes," we entered, guided by the light. What can I say? It was a Kodak moment, and we captured it on film. "Jim, oh my God, what are you doing here? I'm here to serve you with divorce papers and throw your ass out of my house." Jerome began to stand up. I looked at him and said, "Jerome, it is in your best interest to remain on the bed until I tell you to get up." When he realized that there were 4 of us, he sat back down. Karen sat with the sheet pulled up to her neck, and Jerome tried to cover himself with the blanket. "Jerome, I would like to introduce you to these wonderful people. First, there's Frank Jones, the investigator. Next to him is Mike Ford, my divorce lawyer, and then Steve Collins, an Atlanta police detective. Brad controls the camera. I'd love nothing more than to throw you both out of my house bare-assed, but I have other plans for you. In case you were wondering, all the video cameras in the house are recording everything that happens, and have been for the last 3 weeks. After a pause, I continued, "Karen, I know that Jerome is your ex-boyfriend, and over the past 3 weeks I have learned that you wanted to marry him, not me. Everyone in this room knows that you married me because your parents wouldn't approve of this asshole. You and I both know that you married me to give your parents grandchildren so that they would have an heir. Good news, they have 3 heirs, so your family line is secure for another generation." "Jim, please?" "Shut up. I don't care what you have to say. Not now, not in the future. There is absolutely nothing you can say that will change the fact that you were fucked in our bed by another man. You can't expect me to believe this is a mistake. I have a recording of you inviting this asshole to spend the night with you after he fucked you twice in our bed yesterday, 2 hours after I left town. Save your breath. I don't believe a single word you say." Looking at Jerome, I said, "I must say that you are truly a player. Your ass has been under surveillance for the past 3 weeks. Not to mention, we've been learning every bit of information about your pathetic little soul. Frank's team has compiled a very detailed report on your activities. Turning to Frank, I asked him to play the DVD for Jerome and Karen. Karen, be careful. I want you to see your lover for who he is. The video showed scenes of Jerome having sex with Karen and separate scenes of him doing so with 2 other women. But the best scene was Jerome and his friends at the restaurant last week. They were sitting at the table talking when someone asked, "Jerome, are you still playing with married white women?" "Yes, damn it. I can't get enough of it. There's nothing better than fucking them in their husband's bed. What better way to get revenge on a white man? Have you slept with anyone since you came back to Atlanta?" "Oh, hell yes. I have 3 married white sluts that I have now. In fact, you know one of them. Do you remember Karen Thompson from college?" "Yes." "Isn't this the bitch who came to our apartment on her wedding day so you could fuck her?" "Yes, that's her. I've had her pathetic white ass for 5 months now. Imagine. She is my neighbor. If I remember correctly, she told you that she wanted to have sex with you one last time before the wedding, because she was going to be faithful to her husband. It's right. Until 5 months ago, she kept her word. Now she tells me that she regrets not marrying me. Can you believe this bitch actually believes that I would marry her white ass?" By this time, Jerome was screaming at me, and Karen was curled up in the fetal position and sobbing. Frank and Steve approached Jerome and told him to shut up. He finally shut up when they pulled his bare ass off the bed. "Jerome, we're almost done. Just calm down and listen. We're not going to hurt you if we don't have to. Trust me, all 4 of us would love nothing better than to beat the crap out of you. But you know what? Your brothers-in-law have other plans for you. Your wife and her brothers were not happy when we shared our information with them. Why don't you get dressed? Your car should already be here. Before you go, you should know that I gave copies to the husbands of the 2 women you raped, as well as to your wife." "What did you do? I'll kill you, bastard." "You just threatened me in front of my lawyer and a police detective, not to mention the fact that your threat was recorded on tape." Mike handed me a stack of paper, which I, in turn, handed to Jerome. "Okay, asshole, these are the divorce papers your wife asked me to give you. Before I forget, she asked me to tell her to go to hell and not come home. Can you believe it? Her brothers have volunteered to pick up your sorry ass tonight, and they're waiting for you downstairs. I must say that they are not happy that we ended our little conversation. Now it's time for you to leave. I hope you enjoy your trip home. Steve takes you downstairs. Hey, Jim, don't forget to tell the meathead about how her brothers helped us gather information about him. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, asshole. The documentation we gave to your wife goes back at least 15 years. Frank, with the help of her brothers, documented 12 cases of adultery. You should hurry up. They're waiting for you downstairs." Steve grabbed Jerome's hand and ushered him out the door. I then turned to look at my lying, cheating slut wife. "Well, slut, what does it feel like to know that the love of your life played with you like a fool who was fucked? How does it feel to know that you were played and not loved? How does it feel to find out that you were just another whore to Jerome? How does it feel to know that 30 years ago you were his slut? How does it feel to know that he didn't love you? How does it feel to know that you weren't the only dumb white slut he fucked? How does it feel to know that you are his slut for the day? How does it feel to know that you destroyed our family? How does it feel, bitch?" I paused, letting the dust of my words settle and collect my thoughts. "You're just a stupid bitch. I told you 30 years ago that the worst thing you could do to our marriage is cheat on me. It's bad to destroy our marriage, but destroying our family for a piece of crap like Jerome is unforgivable. From today on, you ruined every holiday, every birthday, every graduation, every wedding, and every special family event. You have lost the respect of your children, your parents, my parents, and our friends because you are a slut. Just the sight of you makes me sick. I can't believe I wasted 30 years of my life loving a piece of shit like you. As far as I'm concerned, you're dead to me." She just lay on the bed and cried, hiding her head under the blanket. "You're not worth wasting time on. Get off your cheating ass and get dressed. Your dad is waiting for you downstairs. He agreed to take you home, and I can tell he can't wait to tell Alice that you're a slut." I have nothing more to tell you. You have 5 minutes to get dressed in the clothes you were wearing when you let your true love in tonight. Jim, I can't let my father see me dressed like this. It's your only choice unless you want me to drag your ass downstairs naked. Don't worry so much, your father knows that you are a slut. Now get your sorry ass up and get dressed, you have 4 minutes left. Please, Jim, I'm begging you. Let me wear something else. No, the clock is ticking. Move over, slut. I can't get dressed when everyone is watching. Please, Jim. You stupid slut. These men saw the video of your naked ass receiving your true love. Get dressed. To say that Karen was dressed like a slut would be an understatement. She was wearing a sheer blouse, a very short leather skirt, 4-inch heels and no underwear as I walked her downstairs. Ben looked at her, then turned and said, "Oh God, Jim, I can't take her home like this. Her mother will have a stroke, and I'm not sure I can take us after seeing her like this." Karen stood and looked at her feet, her whole body trembling in anticipation of my answer. Let's talk about a difficult situation. On the one hand, I wanted this slut to go away dressed like a slut, and on the other hand, I wanted to show my respect for Ben and Alice. The only sound in the room was the ticking of the grandfather clock as everyone waited for my answer. Ben, I understand your problem. Steve, will you take them home in Ben's car if I follow you? No problem. Karen, because I love and respect your parents, I'll give you 10 minutes to go upstairs and change. Time begins now. She ran upstairs with the words, "Thank you." When she came back, she was dressed like a soccer mom. I walked up to her and took off her engagement and wedding rings, telling her she didn't deserve them. When she went to get her purse, I told her to leave it. She would leave only in the clothes she was wearing. Ben came over, shook my hand, and said, "Thanks for letting her change." Next is me. The hardest task I've ever had to do was tell my children about their mother's infidelity. Seeing the pain in their eyes, answering their questions, and watching them cope with the devastation caused by the betrayal was very painful. When Karen cheated on me, she also deprived our children of a family. My parents' reaction was a mirror image of my children's. Amy turned down a soccer scholarship from North Carolina and joined the Emory soccer team to be closer to her father. Our compromise was that she could attend Emory, but would have to live on campus with her teammates. She helped me remodel my bedroom and buy new furniture for my pub. When she's not home, I sleep in the guest room. Dan and Benny come in and check on me more often than before. My favorite thing is that they take turns going with me to my beer club meetings. Benny took it upon himself to grow some hops for the beer club. We're going to have a competition to see who can brew the best beer using Benny's hops. I know Amy is keeping an eye on me and making sure her brothers keep in touch with me. On the advice of our lawyers, Karen and I agreed to a no-charge divorce. Ben agreed that I had proof that Karen was cheating and that I didn't need to seek a divorce on charges of cheating on her in order to gain control of the investment fund under the prenuptial agreement. Ben, Alice, and Karen were spared the shame of a public trial. I allowed Ben and Alice to look through Karen's things and take her personal property. 2 months later, Karen's father called me and asked me to meet him in his office. He and I often talk on the phone, so I was surprised when he asked for a formal meeting. For the past 25 years, Ben has been lobbying for me to join him in the family business. I always refused, saying that I would earn my own money and would never be accused of being on his tail. He surprised me by asking me to join him. I raised my hand and told him to stop. I'm not going to join his company. Jim, I understand and respect the reason why you didn't accept my offer in the past, but this time it's different. I'm almost 76 years old, and Dan is at least 15 years away from being able to lead the company. I always believed that if something happened to me, you would step in and take charge. This episode with Karen almost destroyed Alice, and she needs me. Alice is so embarrassed that she can't see her friends. All she does is sit at home. Her consultant advises that she be taken out for a while. Jim, I need you to take over for me and prepare Dan for the future. Ben, I'm so sorry to hear about Alice. Please give her my love. Sir, I am not ready to give you an answer today. Give me a few days to think it over. Don't delay. I need to get Alice and Karen out of Atlanta as soon as possible. When can you give me an answer? I'll be here in 3 days with an answer. Great. Say hello to your parents. What? I know that you always talk to your father before making such a decision. See you in 3 days. 3 days later, I told Ben that I accepted his offer. Dan is delighted with his role as caretaker of the family business, and Ben is right. He still has a long way to go before he takes charge. Once a month, Ben and I meet with Dan, Benny, and Amy to discuss the family business. That way, Ben knows what's going on, and Dan has a support structure he can turn to for advice, just like I turn to my dad and brother. Karen moved to Florida and remains in touch with her children. Dan and Benny go to Florida to visit Karen several times a year, and Amy stays with her for a couple of weeks each summer. Karen attends some of Amy's soccer games and stays away from me. Alice makes progress, but will never move back to Atlanta. I don't know what happened to Jerome. His wife divorced him, and from what I heard, he moved somewhere out west. He was involved in at least 8 divorce cases and was left penniless. Jerome not only destroyed his own life, he destroyed many marriages. I guess I shouldn't blame this son of a bitch for everything. All these women chose to cheat on their husbands. They weren't raped, they weren't drugged, they weren't drunk. They planned their sex sessions in advance, and they are just as guilty as Jerome. I hope I find someone to love in the future. I miss being married, having someone to hug, someone to talk to, and someone to share my love with. Until that happens, I will get up every morning, thank God for my children, and live my life looking forward, not looking back. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.